Good afternoon. Welcome to Bottom Line Studio by RBS Community. And what an amazing day. Today, Dāvis Indriksons has turned out to be Agnes Strasda. And a bit of a joke, but I think that RBS Community has a good strength. And the strength in this case is that there is nothing the community can't do for the school. And just a short reflection, just 15 minutes ago, Dāvis, one of three moderators, was doing his test for COVID-19, as we usually do. And it really turned out that we noticed a second line in a test, and due to security purposes, we decided that we need to act. And that's why thanks for trusting me to run this discussion, because we have a wonderful guest today in a studio, and I will really try to do my best as a newcomer in RBS Community to run through this discussion, because we were really aiming to have Lauma today in our studio. So sad that Dāvis couldn't run this discussion, but I will do my best to make it as good as possible. So today it's my pleasure to welcome Lauma Sīle. We will talk a lot about Lauma you today, and you will talk about yourself. We decided that this will be a case study with the title Tech and Community, because first of all, somehow the first connection with you, Lauma, we know that you're running TechChill, so we decided that it should be definitely something about tech. But to make a bit of a chill from the other side, we felt that you're a great person to talk about community as well, because you do a lot, seriously a lot for the community. And I will start the discussion with one sentence about you. We usually start with a quote from someone else introducing the person, and this time the quote comes from Zane Kampa, and you will be able to comment it afterwards. And she says, and she sends hi to you from California. And what Zane says about you, Lauma: Lauma is a person you can count on. It doesn't matter if it's overseeing operations of TechChill, planning a trip to Italy, or dealing with the responsibilities in various programs she participates in. Lauma gets the job done, and she does it well. She is hardworking, disciplined, a great friend who still finds time for long walks along the Daugava. So, Lauma, what's your reflections and feedback to what Zane said?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And that's like the first thing. But yes, well, Zane was my course mate, and we've been good friends for years. So I think it's pretty accurate. I'm all about planning everything, starting from trips with friends and TechChill and so on. So I think it's pretty spot on, probably.
Mm-hmm. So most probably your friend knows you really, really well. Can you introduce yourself a bit? So who are you, and yeah, how would you like us to know you more?
I think I've, throughout the years, I wear many hats of responsibilities. So the first one would probably be connection to RBS. So I'm a BBA alumni. I'm currently also the vice president of the Alumni Association. Been there a year, and we're actively preparing for the elections for the next year. So that's one thing. And I've been working within tech and startups for about 3 years, I believe now. I started TechChill actually because of a course mate in RBS. I joined as a volunteer back in 2018, and now I've been working as the COO for about a year. So that's been quite a journey. And besides that, I do a lot of mentoring and youth programs and things like that to get people engaged and to just pretty much explore the diverse industry that tech is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You also mentioned being representative of the board for RBS, and we know that there is upcoming event on February 22nd. What is Alumni Association? Can you elaborate a bit? How do you see the organization, the role, and the commitment these years?
Yeah, so basically, I think that throughout the student years, we have student unions or student associations and things like that, or even before that, we have youth committees, where there is just a team that brings some people with either similar background, similar education together. And Alumni Association is pretty much just that. We bring together both bachelor students and master students, and we try to keep them within the community after studies, because there are different companies, different industries, even different countries where students of RBS come from. So we try to bring them all together, host some events, help one another, and also engage current students with opportunities and maybe job offers and things like that. And overall, just build a strong network together. And yes, I think my role is just being a part of the team, currently curating new people into the team. But as we see, we have very amazing candidates coming up for the election next week. So we're excited to announce more in the upcoming weeks.
So great to hear that the continuity is first of all in a good hands of yours and in your team, and also some good candidates to come in your place. This is the sixth episode of Bottom Line Studio. We have many guests already here with their career experiences. What did you do previously in your career before TechChill, which is obviously quite a strong and powerful event in the region? But what has happened before?
So before, I did have one kind of an internship or a job in a startup, but before that, I was working in a completely different industry. I was working in a luxury fashion label, and I'm definitely not a fashion person. But it was something that also RBS kind of brought me in. I was very active from day one within the student union, and I was making some graphic design for the president of the student union at that time. And she invited me for an internship. And I think there was like 5 or 6 students from RBS going into the 2-month internship. And after that, I got the internship, and I started working in the export department with B2B partners. And I stayed there for 2 years. So I became from an intern to managing the whole export department. And it was an incredible journey, because I learned so much about communication that I would not have learned if I joined tech straight away. So that's kind of like the main thing I worked with, both in that company and in the startup. I worked with sales and partnerships.
As most probably you have heard, and if no, then this video and also now audio podcast, as it's available on Spotify, is basically dedicated to 2 important components. What we learn and what we teach and preach in the business school is technology and leadership. I just wanted, and that's not just me, but also all the moderators of this podcast, we like to dig into the technology and leadership. What technological tools or apps help you in your everyday life in terms of productivity, anything else? But yeah.
I think I use only a few tools, because I think when there are too much, then it just it's not that efficient, and you have small little things all around. But I use Slack for communication within our team at work. I use this app called Notion for notes, where you can pretty much write down notes and sort them and add files and link everything. And then another big one that I use is called Asana, which is pretty much a task management force, where you have either a calendar or a board or a project, and then you can just do like little to-do lists, and then you can check it off when you do it, and that's a very satisfying thing to do. But I think those 3 are probably it. I use a lot of the just the Google products, like all the sheets and things like that. But I think that's it. I try to not use as many and just keep it all in one place.
I noticed that you mentioned this satisfying to follow up. So most probably you are the person who likes the structure, that there are dates and responsibilities. Do you find yourself like being super, yeah?
Oh yeah, definitely. My teammates make fun of me for my spreadsheets because I have everything in spreadsheets. I think also as Zana mentioned, our Italy trip was fully in like Google spreadsheets.
Oh.
Everything was within like color codes and dates and things like that. I just think that there are so many things going around, so many things happening, and it's just easier to put everything. It's either it's in one list or place or things like that, and it's just way easier to move forward, especially for us at TechChill. There are a lot of things going on and a lot of partners, speakers, and so on. So it's definitely important to have some kind of structure.
And is there a tool or app you use that might be uncommon or surprising, something that not so many of us or us using? Yeah.
I don't think there are some apps that just appear randomly, because I do work with startups, so there are just a bunch of products that startups are sometimes asking to test out or to get feedback on, but I don't think there's anything that I've really integrated into my daily life currently.
But in general, so the technology for you, what does it mean? How would you describe?
I think that's something that's a very, very big thing in general. Well, technology for me is kind of like mostly related to work, but I think it can be kind of sorted as a lifestyle for not only me, but I think people in general in today's environment, in the lifestyle of people. I think everything is regarding technologies. We study within laptops and softwares and things like that. We organize our life. We have our banking apps and things like that. So I think that technology is just a really big part of our lives currently.
I might run in a trouble asking this question because I don't know the answer, which is great. But if you think of technology and RBS and the learning process, I have seen, as a newcomer, I have seen that there is a lot of good things how to improve the learning online. But when you were studying here, so what would be your judgment on combining RBS and technology? Knowing the target or the aim to be really a school where you get a leadership for technology-based world.
I think that, well, I can comment a bit because when I was studying then the technology field was kind of not as integrated. We didn't have the BITL program at that point. But I think that within the study process there is some integration, but I think that within the community it's much more because, as I said, I heard about TechChill from my course mates, from the lecturers. We have startup courses. We had, I think we had other courses as well where you kind of had to figure out how to integrate several softwares into your business life. So there's definitely a connection, but I think it's even more promoted from the members of the community rather than just the education process.
Which is good, I assume, yeah. Well, both technology and leadership is somewhat connected with success, and also it might be connected with a failure. Describe a failure, or as we call it, learning these days, that had a like meaningful impact on your life. So what would it be, and what did you learn from it?
I've thought about this question a lot because it does come up in other talks as well, and when I think about the biggest failure, I think the standard answer that everyone wants to hear is something that still haunts you or something that is very an unpleasant experience. And I think that there's nothing that I would say has been like a most significant failure or thing like that, because even though I failed a lot within the whole professional field and things like that, I was probably rejected in every possible project and program in high school. And I was feeling very down at some point for that. But when I joined TechChill in particular, I think, and when I was working at TechChill at the beginning, we were working from Techie, that's a co-working space. So there are all of the startups and developers and tech people around, and in that environment, failure is actually promoted. It's a good thing. Nobody will ever judge you that you've failed at something, and it's even like when you say, "Oh, I don't know how to do this," or "I failed," or something like that. People will be just like, "What do you mean? Just test it out, try it out. So what did you fail?" So I think that there's nothing that comes to mind when I think about failures, because it's just it's a very healthy part of progress in my daily life.
You mentioned being rejected in high school. Have you ever asked the question why? Like now being at this stage of your life. So what was the trigger for that?
I think I actually asked already back then why it was, because I was already at that time I was watching some TED Talks and things like that, what young people that want to get in good schools do. And I was pretty confident in asking, so why didn't I make the list, or what was the thing, to get some kind of general feedback, because there's nothing bad that can happen from asking feedback. And I think there were many reasons, and still up to this date, when I do get rejected in some kind of projects or some projects doesn't go through, I think that's something that I definitely do to improve, because there have been things where I apply and I think I'm the best person for the job, I'm the best person to do this, and now looking back I see that probably not at that point.
And you also said that I failed a lot. Maybe you are super demanding towards yourself. If you are ready, can you share at least one or two those a lot failures? Just to see the areas or maybe the elements of the failure.
So, for example, I will not mention companies or projects because I will get in trouble. But there has been, for example, projects where I applied. So there are a bunch of youth mentoring projects or like youth camps or things like that, where you can get in, and then there's kind of study process that you go through. You get some diplomas or education mentoring. And there were a lot of those that I didn't get in. There was actually one example that comes to mind. There was this thing that SSC Riga hosted. It was the Junior Entrepreneurship Summer School. And initially I didn't get in and because they had only, I think, 50 people that they approved. And part of them were from a leadership program by Junior Achievement Latvia. So the other part was just the selection of the sign up. And initially I didn't get in. So I got called like 2 days before the camp saying that, hey, we had cancellations, do you want to come in? And that was probably one of the best experiences that I've had, where I actually first heard the word startup. And there were a couple of weeks ago, I heard one of the professors that were there that now works within the industry that said, I remember you from that camp.
Oh.
So that's kind of like a good example, I think, that where I kind of failed, but I made it through at the end.
Yeah, I feel that you are super demanding on yourself.
Probably.
but yeah, that most probably that has helped you to be where you are now. Being demanding on yourself is also a part of a successful way to achieve the result. Now moving to a bit the bigger picture, the community part. Which we call managing and giving back to community. I really feel that RBS is strong in that. I see a lot of initiatives. I'm meeting these days a lot of people who are part of community in different ways. For example, you with the Alumni Association. But apart from RBS, you are a member of many other community projects. Why it is important for you to be a part of it?
Well, I think that when we're looking at community, or when we're looking at maybe even like personal growth, there's so much that you can do by yourself, by your skill set, and by the experiences that you can have, I don't know, by yourself, by watching videos, going through courses or whatever. But I think that you can truly grow based on who are the people around you, who are the organizations around you, and so on. If you're going to be in a very negative environment or very even demanding environment and so on, it may not be the best place for you to grow. I think it's kind of part of the process that you need to be the person who you want to see around you, and when you have those people around you, then it's just more efficient, or it's just better to grow in that way.
You mentioned this personal growth. We talk a lot about good leaders and the way how they develop their skills, because we know that some people are just born like with a flag in the hands, but for many of leaders it really takes time to develop themselves. What does it mean for you to be a good leader? How would you describe that?
I think that a good leader needs to have empathy and maybe even charisma, if we're looking at characteristics. But I think mainly a leader needs to know how to work with people, how to communicate, how to be transparent, and basically there are many hard skills that can be taught. But I think that the main aspect of a good leader is how you communicate with other people.
So communication.
Yeah,
attitude.
I think that's probably the main.
I've been running one podcast called Day After, and specifically leadership talks, and I've been interviewing many people and asking this question. So what's the difference between the leader and manager? And what's interesting, there are many answers, and all of them are interesting because we take some certain perspective when answering that question. What would be your answer? So what's the difference between leader and manager?
I used to think that those are pretty much the same things. I think at RBS we always had this, in every lesson we were taught not to be just a manager but to be a good leader, and I always thought that's kind of weird, you have to be both. But throughout the years I've seen that you can be both, but there are people who can be very good managers but very bad leaders, and there are people who can be very good leaders and very bad managers. And I think the main difference is the fact that a leader needs to know how to inspire people, how to communicate with them, but a manager needs to be someone that will just get the job done, who will be able to make the hard decisions, make structure and things like that. So it's perfect when you have that in one person. And I think that at some level you maybe can, grow within the years and develop yourself as a better leader or a manager. But I think that mainly I think that managers differ from leaders just based on the fact that they are more structured, maybe can make tougher decisions, and it just comes naturally to them.
And if I would ask you, who are you?
I would say I'm definitely a better leader than a manager. I have a hard time saying no to a lot of projects. But the thing is that I know what are my weak spots within like the management, and there have been instances where I've, for example, been offered positions or jobs where I say that I'm not ready for this currently because I know that I will not be able to do the things that needs to be done by this level of management, for example. So I think currently, or even always at some point, I've been a better leader, but I'm working on the management skills that I'm still lacking.
At least from the beginning of the interview, keeping in mind the love towards spreadsheets and follow-up, I would say that you are somewhat both leader with
with some things still needing to be
with a great love to spreadsheets and follow-up. It's great to hear that. If we think of the idol, so who is your superstar when it comes to leadership, and maybe also like superstar manager, because we need both in different times?
I think that definitely in the board of TechChill, where there's currently 4 people, they have been the biggest supporters around, and I'm that kind of person who can't keep working for a company if I don't truly believe in the values, and I think that really shows. The board has been there throughout the years, and they've truly emphasized the fact that they care about people, not only about the business in general. So all of them and some other people from the local ecosystem would be definitely Anna Andersson, who is the creator of Riga Tech Girls, and if you see Anna's profile, what she has done, you would think, oh, she's an amazing human being, professional, and so on. And then when you meet her in person, she's the kindest, nicest person on this earth, I think. So she's a great role model. And there's also a female startup founder, Marina Petrakova, who I've met throughout the years, and she's also developing this amazing product within the health tech industry for kids. And I think she's also one of the great people that I look up to well in the industry.
Mm-hmm. I think that Anna deserves a huge appreciation because exactly yesterday I was reading her interview in one of the weekly or monthly magazines. Mm-hmm. Sorry, don't recall now by heart, but I think that it's also a good and important skill of the leader to admit what's behind the scene. So I think that she made it quite obvious that all the good things which we see on the scene, on the stage, requires a lot of effort from the person. So big appreciation to Anna. I agree that she's a good role model for all of us. I remember quite clearly that in one of the Alumni Association's calls, where I was also invited to present the idea of this podcast, I really liked how you said that good luck with the podcast to make it sustainable, because that's true. It's easy to start, but more difficult to maintain it. But you are a master of podcasts as well. So what's your purpose in creating that? So ours was to show the RBS community, the alumni, their success stories, and also failures, as we just referred to a few of them. So what's your purpose in creating a podcast?
Well, I was a part of TechChill podcast when we started that, and then for a part I was apart from TechChill. So at that point I wanted to express my opinions and my learnings and so on. And then I started this, it was started as kind of like a foundation or like an organization called Techie, where I pretty much just wanted to show people how diverse tech and startup industry is, because I think that when we're looking maybe at high school students or students in particular, you may heard some positions in jobs, but you don't really see all of them. I don't think I ever in high school heard what a UX UI designer does or anything like that, right? Mm-hmm. So it was pretty much to just educate people about the possibilities within the tech and startup industry, because we really do need a lot of talent. The ecosystem is constantly developing. So that was one, and that was probably the main reason. But the other reason was also because there were still a lot of things that I didn't fully understand, or that I was around, but I didn't, I wanted to learn more. And the podcast was kind of a place where I could interview top people and just get them to say what it is. Because, for example, I work a lot with also investors, and at that point also, and I heard this term venture capital, and I knew what it does. But when you work around it, you don't really know how they get the funding, how they get the startups, what does these rounds mean. So we hear, for example, pre-seed, seed, Series A, and all these buzzwords probably. And I knew about them, but I didn't understand them fully. So we had a speaker at TechChill and I asked him to join my podcast, and I just asked him all the questions. So therefore I learned, and I believe that some people who are in similar positions or who want to go in the industry also hear all the questions and all the basic questions, not like really in depth. So
by learning yourself, you were willing to share the knowledge with others, which is super responsible. Now we are moving also to another question, which is more related to social responsibility, which is again a bit of a buzzword, but with a legacy these days. What does it mean for you to maybe I will rephrase. Now we are talking about socially responsible leaders. What does it mean for you? Do you see them on a daily basis? Is it still like leaders are focusing on business results and are not so much interested in being, first of all, sustainable leaders themselves and also run the sustainable business. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
I think that social responsibility, I agree that it's quite a buzzword in nowadays, and some people just use it for, communication. But I believe that to be socially responsible means to care about what is going around you, so the environment, your team, and everything around that. I think it's probably difficult to be socially responsible, but it's a very important thing to do. And I believe that a lot of companies are integrating this into their daily lives, because if we don't take care of our employees or our teams, they're going to leave. If we don't take care of our industry or the environment, we're going to suffer the consequences in some way. So this is an example, for example, at TechChill. Even though we are an event and we talk about sustainability, we also care about the production of the event itself. So we don't say we are zero waste or anything like that, but we do implement sustainable measures, like we don't use plastic or we don't use banners, we don't use anything like that. And we plant trees after the event for all the unsustainable things that we've done. So I think it's just caring not only about your business and about yourself or things like that, but also caring about what is around you and how you can support your surroundings.
I think that you have also mentioned that, but in general, what is obvious that due to the high speed of tech development, there is also a high demand from the people's point of view to have quite tight work schedules, and also there is a risk of burning out as the demand is so high. So how do you see that? Is it purely now IT issue because of the high development speed, or we can say that due to COVID the burnout issues are everywhere? And what's your opinion on that?
I think that burnouts in the technology industry, I would say they are more severe than in others. It's probably a subjective opinion, but what I've seen from being also in other industries. I think that there are many factors that can influence that. It probably is at some extent from COVID, because the work from home for many people probably just changed the boundaries, so we don't have a schedule anymore. We can work a little bit earlier, a little bit later, maybe do some tasks, check-ins, because we think that we took a little longer break in the midday or something like that. So I know that for our team, we kind of struggle to have these boundaries for the work time. But in general, burnout is something that has been around for a very long time. I did an episode on mental health, that's why I was digging into the research a bit. And there's actually significant costs and significant number of people who experience burnout, and they don't really talk about it because mental health is still up to this day kind of like this taboo topic, and we don't want to talk about it. But burnouts happen to about, if I'm remembering correctly, about 3/4 of workforce in general in today, and more than once. And those are not only something that really influences our health and our well-being, but from more practical point of view, if we're looking at business perspective, those are very high costs for both treating the health aspects and also employee retention and so on.
But what would be your suggestion, both from the employee side and also from the employer side, how to deal with that, how to help? I would say in many cases also for the managers and leaders, as they are super passionate about what they do and where they want to lead their teams, that they sometimes don't notice that there are those issues. So what would be your suggestion?
I think that it's important to check in with your team. This is something that we've done all throughout the years. We just have either one-on-one meetings or informal meetings where we don't talk about work, but we do talk about how are we feeling. and how is life in general, and if we are managing our tasks as we should, or if we need some kind of help. I think that checking in is probably one thing, and I believe at some cases employers do know how much their employees can take, and maybe to take advantage of those overachievers or people like that. So I think it's important for employers to take some kind of matters, either check in or check about schedules, or do some kind of. There are some initiatives that are now happening in companies, for example, integrating 4-day work weeks, having retreats, having mental health days off. There's a lot of things like that. But I think from employee perspective, it's also important you don't have to be a manager to check in with your team, to ask how they're doing, to ask if you can help, or if you are feeling bad or you are not able to do all the things that you have to do. It's important that you communicate also to your employer that. So that's kind of some things that I think you can do.
You also mentioned that you need to talk. So the communication these days, and not just these days, it has been always quite essential. And for me, as I have the opportunity to sit here today instead of Davis and maybe ask specifically on the communication, I've been always reminding myself that the communication has been concluded when the end user has understood the message. So that's my mantra. I've been repeating it for me myself. How do you feel as a leader, as a manager, project manager? So how would you evaluate yourself from the communication perspective, and what do you see around you, how other managers are doing when it comes to communication?
Well, I think to understand if everyone is on the same page and if it has been understood, it's important to have like both parties, because you can never know. If you don't want to talk fully about everything, you will not be able to push it through. But I think that as long as you, as either employee or employer, are transparent and honest and are asking the questions that truly matter, that's the most you can really do. So I think it's important to understand that for employees and employers, and if you don't feel comfortable talking to your managers, then one, maybe it's an issue and you need to talk about it or change the environment, or the other, you need to work on your skills, how you kind of communicate that, because if you can't communicate how you're feeling, then you may not get really far also with some professional goals, or if you want to get a higher pay, higher position, or things like that.
So who is the best communicator from the business in Latvia, from your perspective, and who is the worst one?
I think, as people, you mean, or like companies? Yeah. I think it's a very controversial question that we can't
I know.
answer. I definitely think not.
At least let's have the good examples.
Yeah, I think that, I can say from our team or from our environment, we have one of our board member, Ernest Stals, who is also one of the co-founder. We tend to call him the chief mental health officer at TechChill also, because he's always checking in. And when he was working from Tech Hub, he's always asking, how are we doing? So how are you really feeling? What we can do better? If you're not feeling good about a certain partnership or something like else, he's the person that will say, we don't need that, we can just move to another one. I know that we've had calls where I've asked him, I have a really bad call with some kind of a potential company or a person, or they've treated me bad or something like that, and he's always like, we don't need that, because we don't work with that kind of environment, so that's okay. So that's kind of one good example that I could give.
So Ernest.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyone else?
I mean, there are a lot. I think pretty much all the people that I've worked with around, and also the people that I've mentioned as role models, they're all really good at that.
What unites those good communicators? What's their common?
Well, I think it relates really much to the leadership, what we said, what is to be a good leader. and as we talked about, it's about being able to communicate. So I think the same. It's just empathy or charisma or just being able to read people, to know people, to understand people, maybe even.
Based on few notes Dāvis managed to leave me, I know that he wanted also to ask questions on some misconceptions. Most probably you discussed that before. Would you like me to mention a few of them and then elaborate, or maybe you can identify yourself what kind of misconceptions you find these days? Because I see a few of them Dāvis has mentioned, but you can
I think you can go from the list. I think we set up a few, but I'm not sure
which ones. So first of all, he mentioned that it is very difficult to contact high-tier executives from well-established companies and get a response.
Yeah, I think that this is something that for people that are learning about sales or who are still in kind of like a business early on, think that it's really hard to get to top level executives, and at some cases that is true. I think it really depends on the other person, but this is something that I was told a lot within working in sales. And now for the past year, I think when we had lack of people and I just had to get to some people without asking constantly to others to introduce me to someone, I just started to approach people on LinkedIn or find their emails, even on Twitter, to approach people. And I've been in contact with people that I've never imagined that would ever respond to me. For example, I've had talks with the COO at Waze and at eToro and the CMO at Oatly, and they all responded to me to a LinkedIn message. So that seems just unreal.
There are a few others, but I will pick two of them. One is you need to have experience or be knowledgeable about an industry before you can work in it.
Yeah, I think that it definitely depends on the role that you're going in. If you're applying as an engineer and you know nothing about it, it probably will not work. But when I started at TechChill, I was very transparent about the fact that I knew nothing about startups and technology, and they still hired me, and I learned along the way. And I think still now at this moment, for example, when we are hiring, it's not really important for us if the person really knows the industry. We just look for more actually to the soft skills even, and then what we can teach them as a company.
And the last from the list, startups do not pay high wages.
I think that very, very young startups, when they're very early on, they can't pay high wages because they just don't have what to pay. But once startups get funding, it's actually important for them to grow really fast. So they have to attract the top talent, and they know that they will not be able to get the top talent without paying them what they want. And they are interested for the talent to stay in the company because it's just better for the business. So I think that currently in Latvia there are so many startups that will pay significantly more than corporate jobs. And that's definitely a positive thing to look at.
Most probably some of the viewers would ask, please give us the names, give us the names.
Yeah, I think that just any startups that we see around the horizon, those are the ones that have made it somewhere.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Seems that no. Lauma, can I ask few questions also regarding startup ecosystem in Baltic countries? Again, most probably we could talk like hours, but just two questions. What support from your perspective can startups get in Baltic countries? So what's your opinion on that?
Well, there are many. In Baltic countries, there are both associations and funds and events. So there is everything that a startup would probably need. Well, most of the startups, and there is funding, there is support organizations, there are regulations that are being changed. So there is a lot of support already here, and Latvia was actually mentioned as most startup-friendly country in the world recently by an investment fund. So we do have several rules and regulations that are more friendly to startups regarding taxation and attracting talent and supporting them in with financial matters. And I mean, we have events in both in Latvia and in Estonia that are also helping startups to meet investors, potential clients, things like that. We have startup associations in all three countries, and Baltics is currently just one of the most interesting regions in Europe for startups.
Mm-hmm. And why? So what's your judgment why it is so?
I think, well, Estonia has been around as like this leader in technology for quite some time. And in Latvia, I think that the startup industry was not that mature, so it wasn't really around that long. There wasn't that many startups. And now when we have startups growing, succeeding, attracting funding, when we have our first unicorn, then it's just, it's kind of like a snowball effect that also Estonia got. When they got their first unicorns and when Skype was created and so on. So I think that we are just maturing with time, and we are also proving that we're very good at creating products. I think when looking back in historic events, even Latvia was, and Baltics in general was a good region for engineering and leadership and business. Even a lot of our products have been a lot of the products that have made it in the world has actually been based in Baltics. So I think that it's just naturally the thing is also happening within the startup field.
Now looking at my phone, I see that, which is super surprising. Now I understand Dāvis, Elīna, and Greg, when they are usually moderating the podcast, that time flies. So you could talk like a few hours from now. I still wanted to ask you one question, as this is RBS community podcast. So, what's your funniest moment while being at RBS and studying at RBS?
There's probably been many. I think the funniest or the warmest or the best moments I think have still been from bonding camp that RBS does every year before for first year students before they join. It's probably the most uncomfortable, stressful experience that a student can have. Because most of the times I think you don't know anyone, and I think my year was the year when also the students try to make it like the worst experience ever by just having a bunch of activities that will just bond people, because you don't bond through asking good questions or doing, the not competitive sports or things like that. So we had a very tough bonding camp. We knew everything about every one of our course mates at that point. We probably had a lot of fun moments, or being lost in the city, or doing talent shows. And I think those are like the funniest moments in bonding camp, and that's pretty much the best, I think, experience that still RBS students have, because when they come to the first day of school, compared to other schools, when you come to RBS in the first day of school, you know all of your course mates. You've spent 3 days with them in the middle of nowhere usually. You've been through a lot. You've competed in a bunch of games, and it's just, you are already a community. You are already like a little family.
Yes, it's great to hear that. It's good from the very first day when you enter the school, or at least you are close to the school. So first of all, Lauma, sorry that you were not able to talk to Dāvis, and you should enjoy my company. But on the other hand, it was my pleasure to talk to you, to meet you. Actually, I think that for the first time, I have heard a lot, read a lot, but. You see, RBS has connected us through this discussion, and for all the viewers, and most probably for the students or alumni of the school, I think that, Lauma, we can remind that on the 22nd of February, everyone from the alumni side is invited to Alumni Association general meeting, yeah?
Yes, we will be having a general meeting and elections, and It's great to join even if you are not running for the board, because we will be going through all of the things that we've done in the previous year and some plans that we have for the next year. And there are some things that we are very proud of. We are currently raising funds for a scholarship, and we are creating a lot of events where alumni can come together, finally in person, hopefully. So yeah, it's definitely, I would suggest to join on next week.
So everyone can find the link on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Yes.
But if not, then I think that Lauma expressed the perfect way of how executives should communicate. So now shoot Lauma on LinkedIn. Hopefully she will be able to give all the answers to you. So once again, Lauma, huge thanks for joining, and I wish you good luck both for TechChill, which is on the 28th of April,
yes.
And the closest event, 22nd February, Alumni Association general meeting. So thank you very much, and I wish a good recovery to our moderator, Davis. So thank you.